Welcome back, dear viewers. You're still watching The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International. It's now time for our first topic of discussion for today. And as we noted earlier at the beginning of the episode, we're going to be talking about the African Renewable Energy Initiative. And in fact, the African Renewable Energy Initiative has recently entered a new phase after it has achieved one of its targets, and that is generating tens of thousands of megawatts of electricity using the solar energy and this will be reached by the year 2020. And to shed more light, we're most delighted to be joined here in the studio by Dr. Karam, and he's the Technical Director for the Regional Center for Renewable Energy. First of all, good morning, Doctor, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Doctor. Let's first take a thorough look over the source of this initiative and how have it developed.
In fact, this initiative is an Egyptian-led initiative since 2015. And if you remember, there was a conference held here in Egypt for African leaders in the environmental domain, and Egypt is leading the group of environmental affairs, let's say, in the African continent. The initiative itself came as a proposal from Egypt and then was coordinated by Ghenia Conakry, Professor Alpha Conde. He is the coordinator based on consultation with the representatives from the 5 regional communities of Africa. West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, Central Africa, and Southern Africa. So it is an Egyptian-led initiative that was announced first here in Egypt in 2015, and then by President Sisi in New York. And then they formed what is called Independent Delivery Unit that is responsible for putting the structure and frameworks how to implement the initiative. The initiative is targeting having, as you said, 10,000 megawatts of electricity by renewable energy by the year 2020. This is the first phase, and then this would, up to 2030, it will translate into 300,000 megawatts all over Africa, which is substantial investment volume. And then this would help Africa, of course, to achieve its sustainable development goals. This is the first target that worldwide everyone is looking at. But for Africa, the first priority is to improve the access rate for electricity in Africa, because many of the African countries have very low electrification rates. And this is seen as a way to develop Africa, to achieve low carbon strategy, and to have, in fact, and the beauty of this context, it is an African-led inclusive process. So it is supported by the international community, but it was born in Africa, and it is grown in Africa, and it is financed mostly by those who work closely as development partners with Africa. Yes. So this is the African Renewable Energy Initiative. In fact, there were some meetings last week in New York, attended by the Egyptian representative of this in the Independent Delivery Unit, IDU, Dr. Musa Amran from the Ministry of Electricity. And in fact, they approved several projects within the initiative. The process, how it works. The process that countries propose projects for support and funding and to be listed as part of the initiative. When the project is listed of the initiative, having the logo of the African Renewable Energy Initiative, then donors, international donors and financial institutions bring this as part of the overall portfolio and the global effort towards sustainable development and achieving the sustainable development goal, especially goal number 7, which is improving the access to electricity, reliable and safe access to electricity. So several projects have been, in fact, submitted. There are some criteria to approve these projects, and then the project have been inspected by what is called technical committee, and this technical committee held several meetings, including one that was lately organized here in Egypt, and in Mauritania and in Chad and so on. And then they approved around 200 projects, 200 renewable energy projects, and this is over the period 2016 till now, in 4 years.
So under this initiative, there is this number of projects.
Ah, yes, and you can imagine the volume of investment, $7 billion US. 7 billion investment. This was injected in the African market to develop renewable energy projects. And in the near future, we are seeing a lot of projects also coming on the pipeline. And by the way, Egypt will host very soon another technical committee unit for the projects in Central Africa. You know, Sub-Saharan Africa, Chad, and the neighboring countries. Egypt will host this project to inspect the project. Would they qualify for the goals of improving the well-beings, adding to the economy, improving the electrification access, and so on, or not? So these are the criteria. And in fact, I met Professor Alpha Gondi in a meeting for the Africa Renewable Energy in last June, and he was very much appreciating the leadership of Egypt. Egypt was the first African country to apply for private-led projects. So like Bimban complex, we have spoken about this here a lot over the past few months, the largest and biggest wind farm, solar complex worldwide we have in Egypt, the wind farm in Jebel Zayt and the solar complex in Bimban in Aswan. So he was very much looking forward to transfer the experience of the Egyptian renewable energy industry to the African continent. And this is an opening market, an opening opportunity for a market that is growing rapidly. And in fact, as RECREA, the Regional Center for Renewable Energy, when we calculated the volume of projects up to 2035, only on African Arab countries, starting from Djibouti, Somalia, Sudan, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and Mauritania, this ring. When we calculated the sum of this project, we found that we will contribute around 1/3 of the target. More than 100,000 megawatts of projects would be installed by 2035. And imagine what, 50% of that is from Egypt. Egypt alone, the target of 42% by 2035 would add around 54 megawatts of 54,000 megawatts or gigawatts, we call it gigawatts directly, of electricity through our network. So it's a very promising future. It is an inclusive process. It is in fact somehow attractive for the international community to contribute and support. And also it shows that Africa can find its own solutions. It is now a different perspective. I was over the last 3 days in Ethiopia in a meeting with the African Union Commission. It is called Europe, EU, African Union Technical Assistance Facility. And we were experts from all over Africa, from Southern Africa, Southern Africa Power Pool, up to RECREA here, the North African Power Pool, let's say, Regional Center for Renewable Energy. And we were discussing what would be the vision for having a unified electricity system, or at least harmonized electricity system for all Africa. And imagine that the African leaders in their last summit, they requested us as technical teams to try to work on having a pan-African electricity system that's communicating with each other, that is interconnected, that we can export electricity to Africa, and then getting also electricity when we need this, and enable the trade even to Europe and Asia and so on. This system, the target is to have a system by 2022. And this is very soon, in fact, for us. We see, okay, how we will do that. And we're discussing, so how to, for example, if we are transferring electricity, what would be the tariff to transfer, how to calculate it, how to harmonize the way of calculation, what would be the capacities of the interconnection to be established, what is the portfolio of projects to be added to this. In fact, Africa is moving very fast, as Egypt also is moving very fast. Egypt, and this was brought to the attention of many experts, by the UN, by the way, not by us as RECREA or by the Arabs, but by the UN, that Egypt within the coming 20 years will have more, I would say, consumption, the highest consumption in Africa compared to, for example, South Africa and Nigeria. You know, these are the largest economies, but we are going to exceed them, whether in demand or for installation. And this means that Egypt will be also looked at as a hub for investments in Africa, yes, and also a pathway for sustainable development.
Yes. Speaking about investment, Doctor, as you have kindly mentioned, this project, billions of dollars will be injected in this project. What would be the return on it for benefits for Egypt?
Okay. For Egypt, there's one number. If we look at this number, we will say, okay, we are on the right track. Over the past 2 years, 15% of the foreign direct investment injected into the Egyptian market were for the
Energy sector.
renewable energy. Only renewable energy, not the energy, 15%. So you can imagine that this is now a way to tell the world that we are developing, satisfying our energy needs in a sustainable way through low carbon, I would say, path, a low carbon strategy. And if you look into the recent announcement, just 2 days ago, Egypt announced that the first coal power plant will not be built. It will be, I would say, swapped with another project to wind and solar projects. So instead of having the coal power plant, we'll have solar and wind project. So seeing that Egypt is revising even its options in view of the recent changes in the international market. And when you look at the return on investment, you know, renewable energy now is among the cheapest sources of electricity. 5 years ago, we were not saying that. It was expensive. Everyone would say, no, renewable energy is expensive. We should not go for this. We should look for the most economical solution, the most feasible, the viable, the jargon that we are all talking about. But right now, in this particular moment, electricity prices, for example, in the recent project in Saudi Arabia, it was just Domat El Gandal, one project, 1.9 cents per kilowatt hour. In Egypt here, 2.7 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity, for solar electricity, and so on. So we are talking about 1 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour for projects all over the Arab region and including Egypt. And this also provide the investor, the private investor, with the security of a long-term power purchase agreement. So he is staying in the market for 20 to 25 years. Look, think about the investment for the infrastructure projects in the renewable energy and electricity in general. The investor is coming to stay in the country. He is not putting money in a short-term project and then go away with the. No, they are staying in with infrastructure, with assets built in Egypt, and with jobs creation. You know how many jobs were created in Benban during the construction phase of the project, the solar energy project? 10,000 job opportunity were created there. To the extent that a school for solar installation was inaugurated last year in Aswan. What I'm saying, there are multiple benefits. Return on investment is around, let me say frankly, it's between 10 to 14%, which is really high. This is the return in quantification value. You are getting in each $100 you are investing, you are getting 114 or 120. And this is in dollars. If you calculate in the Egyptian pound, it is above 25. And this is a different calculation. But also the socio-economic benefits, the value creation, because you are relying on local, what we call content. The local content includes, for example, transformers manufactured in Egypt, insurance companies from Egypt, all the cables, the roads, steelwork are from Egypt. So you have a local content that is somehow estimated up to 40 to 50% in some projects. Of course, you have not yet reached the way that you are manufacturing the full photovoltaic, for example, module in the solar or the full wind turbine, but you are in the process of having a high local content that would contribute to the local economy. And this applies also in Africa. In Africa, if you look, you'll find in the markets now in Africa, and I was very much happy when I was seeing that, pleased that you can see solar kits, some small system for $70 sold in the street that you can take with you, and then you have a source of electricity for your television, receiver, and a charging your mobile. For $70, you get it, and you carry it like this, and then you install it in your home. I was even thinking to buy it and bring it with me here in Egypt, but okay, this is it won't be legal to have it like that, except I announce for it. So the concept of having accessible and reliable source of electricity to everyone in the community, whether he is staying on the mountain or he is staying in a rural area or in the desert, whether we were discussing, one of the issues we're discussing in the technical committee, for example. What about off-grid solutions? Those who are staying in areas like, for example, our brothers in Sudan. You know, in Sudan, the electrification rate is only 40%, meaning that each 10 families, 6 families have no access to electricity
At all.
At all. They do not see electricity. They are using cook stoves, wood and biomass cook stoves. You can imagine that traditional form of here in Sudan, just few kilometers, I'm sorry, a few hundred kilometers below Egypt.
Why is that? Why is that?
It is not because of lack of resources. They are rich in hydropower, they are rich in solar
Exactly.
energy.
Then why is it happening like this?
Poor management, let me say, over the last 30 years. Why Egypt?
So the
Egypt
resources, and
suffered
they're
in-
rich in resources.
I'm
They
sorry?
are rich in resources, but at the same time, they
They-
haven't managed
I
to
like the, you know,
be able to invest in it.
You know, Churchill have said during the World War II, when the Germans were, in fact, invading most of Europe, he said one slogan that survived up till now: "If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail." And they have they are not thinking about the future. They are thinking about, I'm sorry, the old regime there in Sudan. We're thinking about just Khartoum and the neighboring area, the city. That
Other areas were neglected.
yes, very much marginalized. And this is a disaster, in fact, because from this area they had all the issues that is now they are facing. And in fact, we had held in the first half of September, we were the first, together with the UNDP, we were the first to organize 4 workshops, in fact, in Sudan, putting the strategy for exploiting renewable energy there. And we started from scratch, in fact, setting a renewable energy target in the master plan, so master planning. Then having the modalities for implementation, setting legal framework, institutional framework. We are designing this now for them, and they are very much keen to change the face of Sudan so that within the coming 10 years, they would achieve around 12% renewable energy target beside the hydro. The hydro is already 50%. So beside the hydro, they will have renewable energy, wind and solar, and they would have higher access rate. Hopefully this would reach 70, 80%, and this would be an achievement within the coming decade in Sudan. What I'm saying that electricity access, although we do not feel that because Egypt is among the leading countries in the African continent, and we should be proud of the achievement that we have conducted. But in reality, most of the African continent have access rate below 50%. And this is an opportunity for our companies to go there and support, because we have good companies that can work in the infrastructure, Arab contractors. And so I'm sorry to say names of the Egyptian countries, Egyptian companies, but we are in fact qualified, and they are very much appreciating and in fact trusting. There is a confidence of the Egyptian industry and the Egyptian engineering skills and so on. So the African market is a huge opportunity for us, and unless we organize ourselves, and because as Egyptian now, not as a regional center for that region, but as an Egyptian, we need to organize ourselves so that we have, similar to Europe, an integrated solution for the country that we are interacting with. And the international community, when they see a feasible solution, a solution that is in fact viable to implement, they would support. It is not a problem of having financial resources. Finance was never the problem in the renewable energy sector. Finance is available through green climate funds, through African Development Bank, through World Bank, through many institutions, IFC for the private investments. The issue to have a well-structured business model. That, for example, if you are in a rural area and you would like to buy a solar system for your own generation, would the utility accept that you inject electricity or not on the system? Because you would have surplus. At a certain time, you have solar energy produced, but you are not using it. For example, if you are working throughout the day in the farm, what will happen with this solar energy? You will inject it to the grid. Would the legal system allow you to inject this? Would there be a balance so your consumption at night would be balanced with the morning? This is called a net metering policy, for example. If the legal system is not allowing that, people would be reluctant to install a system. On the other hand, assuming that you would like to take a loan because the system is somehow expensive for you, you would like to have a system for solar pumping for irrigation. And pumping for irrigation, one of the most economical solutions. You are now switching from diesel, which is expensive and you cannot find available each day, to solar technology. Assuming you would like to have such system, which is expensive for you as a farmer. And then, you know, in most parts of, even in Egypt and Africa, the land ownership is not registered. This is a problem that is faced all over Africa. So how we would get the collateral for the bank? Would the bank accept to finance you to buy your system? They will say, no, we cannot finance because you do not have a collateral, a security that you would provide us to give the loan. What is the option that you are offering? And you will find, for example, a country like Tunisia giving an innovative solution for that. They are telling that we, as a government, will take the loan on behalf of the farmer, or even of the commercial facility or industrial facility, and they will pay on the electricity bill. It's called on the bill finance. On the bill finance, that you, instead of paying to the company, to the solar provider, you will pay through your electricity bill monthly. And then everyone is happy because the bank is getting security, because if they are not paying, the electricity will be cut. And the people are happy because they are now not under the pressure of providing securities and so on. And the system provider and the system integrator and supplier is happy because they are getting their money. Just innovative business model, and this innovative business model have injected millions of dollars to the Tunisian solar market, solar thermal and solar photovoltaic electricity generation. I'm saying that in other countries we have seen also a concept which is called pay as you go. Have you heard about pay as you go?
No.
It sounds from the name that it's directly proportional. The amount you pay is directly proportional to what your consumption.
Exactly. This is a private. They are called peer-to-peer transaction. That, for example, you have now.
Is it something similar to the new system that we are applying?
The prepaid meters, yes.
The prepaid
somehow
meter?
similar, yes. But it is not prepaid. It is, you are paying when you consume, but you are paying through your mobile.
Which is way easier.
Yes, because the people are not, they don't want to have a sophisticated collection system with people going and knocking the doors and reading meters. So instead of reading the meter, it is all based on IT technology, which is not difficult through.
Which countries are applying that?
In fact, around 12 African countries now. So it is getting
Very popular, yeah.
in Africa. Yes, pay as you go. You know that in Somal, because of the disaster they are facing, the crisis, because of Shabab and other
terrorists.
Yes. You know, their currency have devaluated very much. So if you would like to buy, for example, a bottle of water, you need to carry a big bag of money because of this. What they are now, the way that they are buying and selling all the trade activities are done through mobile transaction. So you are giving me money through, just that, as we call it. You charge what tahwil rasid. I'm losing the word.
Topping up of
yes,
the credit.
of
Yes.
the credit, yes. So I'm saying that there are innovative business models that would fit the African context, and there are new forms of securities, and even for small scale and large scale projects. And for the large scale project, for the mega scale projects, like the big power plants, like for example in Aswan, we are finding the international community even providing new form of guarantees, collateral supported by export. So if for example the product is manufactured in, let's say, Germany, then this is part of the German support to the international community, that they provide export credit to the supplier. So they are reducing the risk on the supplier. So when he is offering his package to the African continent, it is at a lower price.
Yeah.
So this is called export credit, and this is now also a common pattern in the developed world to introduce their products into the African market. And also we were discussing the suitability of the products that are typically used in reliable markets, stable markets, to the African context. Let's say if I'm using a fridge that is used for normal stable electricity system like in Cairo, would the same fridge would work in a place with intermittent power supply?
No.
It will, for sure, it would collapse after few months, not few years as we predict in the stable system. So should we have a new quality schemes for those products that are serving rural and I would say poor communities? Should we tailor products? And this is controversial, in fact, because my point of view, that in fact we should work on enhancing their living conditions so that they enjoy the same commodities, the same appliances as those in the cities.
Yeah.
We should not bring them solutions that are lower in performance or capacities. And this is controversial. However, we are discussing even up to these details. So I'm at your disposal if you have any
Yes.
other question.
Right. Also, the idea of Egypt attaining the chairmanship of the African Union sets Egypt on a totally or in its right position where it is supposed to be, retaining its lead role, and also bringing back the opportunities Egypt deserves when it comes to partnership in the fields of energy, monitoring the whole field of energy, I mean in the African continent, controlling those opportunities and working on them for the better or the best interest of the whole country, of the whole continent. I mean, opportunities like that and ideas like that. If you like to elaborate.
Well, first of all, let's think about the ecosystem in Africa. The ecosystem in Africa that many countries are aspiring to have accelerated development rather than normal basis that take 20, 30 years. You would like in 4 or 5 years to, in fact, jump in the economical situation, improve the living condition for their people. And there is what we can call the coupling between the IT technologies and the power generation technologies together with the new socio-economic aspects of development. They are now, we are not talking on the energy sector now only on energy. It is not a matter of provision of energy. Energy is a tool for enhancing the living condition. It's a tool for providing your industry with electricity. It's a tool for having a better health system, healthcare system. It's a tool for having sanitation and water treatment facilities. So without this energy, none of the development components would be achieved. And this is why I would say the modalities have changed in the African context, the ecosystem, that you would not find only ministries of energy or ministries of electricity investing in renewable energy. You will find ministries of agriculture investing in renewable energy, ministries of tourism to have the green label, green tourism label, ministries of industry to have not only in renewable energy but energy efficiency also. So these are new market openings rather than only traditionally we were thinking about mega projects that would require international companies to invest in, and this would in fact limit our options a bit. We would only interact as subcontractors or a consortium member. But when you are tackling the low-hanging fruits on the other sectors, for example, when you are, and by the way this is happening, many Arab countries now are buying vast areas for land in Africa for their farming. So farming in Africa instead of farming on their own lands, limited areas. And they are bringing with this solar facilities, new, I would say, dryers based on new technologies for the...
So it's a full package.
It's a full development package. So we need to think again on somehow with integrated planning concept, that it is not, we are not only offering the services or the skills of the power sector, we are offering an integrated solution that would help them to develop. And when we are offering this, and this is why, by the way, the Africa Renewable Energy Initiative was produced by the Ministry of Environment, not by Ministry of Electricity. The initiative came first from this. And this brings, in fact, the value of, it is not only for power generation, it is for development. Development is the way that we should talk, the language that we should talk to Africa.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Megid, development is a key word in this very important topic. And as always, we're most delighted to have you and your valuable input. Dr. Megid Karamuddin, Technical Director of the Regional Center for Renewable Energy. Thank you so much for being with us on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you very much.
And dear viewers, now we move on to a short break, and then we'll be back to resume the remaining segments of The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International.